it was really neat just reading your bio and learning more about you and stuff, man. I'm excited to get to know you.
Thanks. So I think we should have a fun time. Over to you
Yeah, yeah.
whenever you're ready.
Yeah, no, I hit record for us, but tell me, you got a lot going on there, but here's the way I like to kind of start some of my conversations because you speak, you have all these things, but Mike Handcock, and then I'm gonna come back and introduce you. Tell me what a day in your life looks like.
Well, there's two sort of very different days. One day I could be anywhere in the world, generally with a bunch of cool people that I'm getting to know with my wife, and we're doing a combination of business and exploring whatever the place has got to offer. And then when I'm home, which is probably about 4 months of the year, a normal day for me at work is sitting behind a laptop and looking at the ocean outside. That's basically it. Not that
What
exciting
the
after all.
what takes you on the road? What puts you on your travel schedule? What are you
Well,
what is
it's
what's keeping you busy?
speaking, and we have clients in more than 50 countries. So, we get around. We'll be in the States later this year, July, August for a little bit, about 4 weeks
Yeah,
overall. So yeah, and I think we're in back in Canada in December, Halifax,
yeah,
December. Looking forward to that one.
yeah. You better bring a snow shovel with you. Um,
Absolutely.
So when you're traveling and you're working with your clients, you do some speaking, but like, what does that look like from just your work and things that you do?
Well, we work primarily with entrepreneurs, Jeff. So we run a lot of masterminds. We've run them in more than 20 countries in the last, probably run close to 400 of them now, in the last 8 or 9 years. So there's a lot of that. And there's a little bit of one to one, but that's more online than offline. And then there's just larger speaking gigs, other people's stages, a lot of meet and greets, a lot of working with partners and stuff like that, and just a lot of connection with people who we can help and who can help us. So I don't necessarily believe in the medium of, we can build the best relationship this way. I like to get on a plane and meet people. So,
Yeah.
and I've been doing that for 20 years. So that's sort of how I've lived my life, really. And that's, it's been crazy. But I've been to 114 countries, and I've been to 20 of them more than 20 times. I mean, that's 400 trips in itself.
Yeah. Man, that's awesome. Let me tell everybody who I'm talking to. Today on Second Chance Podcast, we have an incredible guest whose journey is a true testament to resilience and reinvention. Mike Handcock is the chairman of the Circle of Excellence Group and the president-elect of the Global Speakers Federation. His path has been anything but conventional. After being orphaned at 15 and rising to corporate success by 27, he faced a major turning point when he was fired from a high profile role. But instead of letting his past define him, Mike built a global career in entrepreneurship, leadership, and philanthropy. Now he's helping others unlock their potential through organizations like the Global Speaker Federation and the Global Dialogue Foundation and the Sage Foundation. Man, that's a lot. You have absolutely set the world on fire after getting fired, Mike. Um, and I'm excited to learn more about you. So I enjoy conversations, and I like to speak. And I think two people who enjoy both of those things and speaking from stages, I think we're going to fight over who can get a word in edgewise today.
Nah, you're the boss, Jeff. I'm the employee on this show, so I have to
No,
take a
man.
back seat.
Oh man, no, this is all for you. But we talk about those second chances, and you had to reinvent yourself after the setback. Tell us about that. Walk us through Orphaned at 15. Take us from 15 to 27, and then let's talk about your setback, and then where it took you to.
Sure. Well, I was an only child to a solo mother. No aunties, no uncles, no grandparents, no brothers, no sisters. And I came home from sports practice one day and found her dead of a heart attack. And it was a weird thing because at the funeral, all these people were going, hey, your mother was great. When you get back on your feet, give us a call and we'll have dinner. And I'm like, I'm 15, dude. I don't even know how to use a phone, right? It's like, so, people are well-meaning, but, nobody sort of hung around. I lived with my best friend's parents. They took me in for the last 2 years of high school. And then when the high school diplomas came out, my friend's dad said, did you pass? And I said, just. And he said, okay, we've done enough for you. Be out by next week. And I'm like, sorry,
What
what?
year? What year are you talking about, Mike? What were you at time wise, year wise?
Oh, well, I was 17 then, and it was a long time ago, 1979, right? So
So different
I'm
times.
63 now, right?
Yeah, yeah. So different times in the world, man. Right. So like the people for our young folks, a lot of my listeners are I'm 50, so they're in that 35-ish year range, so half your age. So they have no that's 1979, man. You didn't have the internet, telephone call required for you to go to someone's house and borrow a phone, or you had to have a pack of quarters to be able to make that happen. No technology, no availability, and your best friend's dad just said be out next week.
Yeah, it did. So I had to get a job. So I got a job, and at that stage, I was playing in a band because I've always loved music. I mean, music's never far from me. If I reach over, I find a guitar right next to me. So then I started, really investing in the band, and that did okay. We got to tour with some good artists and things like that, and then I got into the corporate side of things, and I don't know. I was in financial services, and I don't even know how I did it. It was a weird thing. My boss said to me when he hired me, he said, "You need to do this, this, and this," and I said, "I'll do that, and if I do that, you get behind me and make sure that I get promoted in this company so that I rise really quickly." He said yes, of course, not thinking at all that I would A, do what he said, and B, hold him to it, and both happened. And after I did my part of the bargain, I just kept every day I'd see him, I'd say, "How's my promotion going?" Right? And in the end, to his credit, he got me the promotion, and I ended up, I think I was 23, 24 as a manager for that company. It was the biggest financial services company at the time. And then from there, I grew a pretty steady career, and they had 150 managers in the company that looked after sales teams. I had the best sales team in the country by the time I was 27, and then I had a run in with the new boss. And I guess, two things. One is that pretty typical thinking of people who are career sort of corporates is that I was doing a lot of things differently than anybody else, and he just didn't want me to do that, but that's why I was getting such great results. And the other thing was that, I was 27 years old and bulletproof, so when he started swearing at me, I started swearing at him backwards, and a week later, he manufactured a way to get rid of me with false documents for expenses that I never spent and all this sort of stuff. I went to court. I fought them for 5 years. I eventually won. And by the time I paid my legal fees, I had $5,000 left over.
Yeah.
And it was 5 years of my life. So I just went, I learned a big thing then. I learned, you can't change what life does to you, but you can change the way you react to it, right? So if I had just walked away and got on with it, I would have saved myself a lot of anguish. But no, I had to prove I was right. So I'm not so worried
Well,
about being
and
right
listen,
these days.
Mike, is that because of that lack? I ain't too far off of you. 15, I kind of was off on my own a little bit more than probably what I should have been. And I can remember being 26, 27 in some pretty significant roles, and bosses change or whatever, and they come in. I was a top performer when and new bosses came in. They didn't like old Jeff. Do you think that attitude and some of that fight to keep what you felt like you had worked so hard with, you didn't see, you were chasing old money, didn't realize new money was coming into your life, right? Where do you think that came from?
Well, I really think that I felt I'd created a system, if you like, there, and I was well respected in the company. It was a really weird situation, and I felt that I was doing things differently, and I was showing people a new way of doing things, which a lot of people were starting to do things the way I was doing them. And then just because He thought I was too young, too much of an upstart, and he didn't want me to do some things that way. We just fell out. We literally fell out. It was
Yeah.
just like, I call it, as a musician, I call it soul notes. There's certain notes that just don't sound good together when they're played, right? And his soul and my soul just didn't resonate. But then to make matters worse, because I know your show is really about sort of picking yourself up and moving on, is that when I tried to get a job with the biggest competitor who had courted me for years, and again, I was only 27, my boss rang the CEO of that company and told them a whole bunch of lies. And I ended up in the managing director's office of the new company, which was in Sydney, Australia. And he said to me, "Look, you look really good on paper. I don't know you." He said, "But we've had all these bad reports. We can't hire you." And I'm like, "What?" And so I said to him, "This is really unfair." I said, "So is there anything I could do?" He said, why don't you go and get me some testimonials, right? He called them referrals, but testimonials, and come back to me and I'll have a think about it. A week later, I had 50 written testimonials for him, including senior management from the company I'd worked for, the mayor of the town I lived in, celebrities, etc., etc. The list goes on. And they were in a nicely packed folder, and he just went, "You're hired." He goes, "I'm really sorry I made the mistake." He said, "This is incredible," right? So, and then I had a really good time with that company for a couple of years until I relocated overseas from that. So, yeah, that's the story.
Well, they packed a lot of. Did you go to college, Mike,
I
or
couldn't go to
university? I think you guys call.
I couldn't go to college till I was in my 30s. Like
Yeah.
I got kicked out of my friend's house when I was 17. I had to get a job. I tried to do night school, but it was just like, you know, I was still rebelling. I'm a musician. I'm rebelling against society. I'm rebelling against my mother's death and the fact that I'm all alone. Not in a bad way. Nobody in my band did drugs or anything like that. But, you know, I used to stay up late and I couldn't be bothered doing anything. And still to this day, I don't like bureaucracy. So it was only in my 30s when I was working for another financial services company, this time the third one, overseas at that stage. And my boss said, "Look, you could be CEO of this company one day, but you don't have a degree." And I thought, "Oh, crap, I've got to get a degree." And in this is a great lesson. So I went and registered at the university to doing it extramurally. And I was doing a business degree, and I went to all the heads of department and I basically sold them this story. I said, "Listen, I've got to do this degree in record time. I've got no time. My job is incredibly hard. I'm only going to be able to study between like 4 in the morning and 6 in the morning. Tell me what I have to do to pass." And they all told me. They used to get out the books, right? And they'd go, "There's a book. No, we never examine you on that section. Don't worry about studying that. Oh, you definitely have to do that." Every single one of them told me that. I did that. And I went from my last year in school, I got middle marks, like a couple of C's, a couple of D's. I got 1A, which was for English literature. And I went from there to university 15 years later, I think it must have been. And I got straight A's and topped the country in 2 subjects. But I can
That's
promise you
awesome,
this,
man.
I didn't remember one thing that I'd studied.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
one
You just did
thing.
right.
I just plowed it through.
Um, During your time, you're coming out 15 right into the workforce, but you learned, and what I guess what I'm curious about, because I'm not too far out. That thing you said about bureaucracy, that's us. That's that 15-year-old that was left alone too long without a lot of rules. I don't get down with a lot with a lot of rules.
Me neither.
Um, that's too funny. You find your way in with sounds like a good male role model that helped you navigate through your first company and kind of helped you get you nudging in the right directions and stuff. Did you find all the training and the on the job? And you went to work and you're a go-getter. Was you as self-aware of all the stuff you was learning and how to apply it, or was that kind of washing through?
No, I was very aware of it. I think I had an amazing mentor. I think I've only had two mentors in my life, and they weren't Tony Robbins or Jim Rohn, but
Yeah.
one of them was a little Croatian guy called Steve Bielos. In fact, I just caught up with him last Christmas, and he's 82 or something now. But when he left his country after the Second World War, actually he wrote a book about it. It's a fascinating story, but because it was a communist country, and he had to whole breakthrough and run for his life, and he was chased by people all the way through France, etc., etc. But when he got to Australia, which is where he moved to, because I was born in Australia, lived most of my life in New Zealand, and now live in South Africa, and I did live in the US for a while in LA. But when he got to Australia, he didn't speak any English, so he went into financial services sales to learn how to speak English. I mean, it's the weirdest thing. And
Yeah.
he just taught me how to sell. He taught me how to relate to people. And he still says to me to this day, he says, you are so impetuous. If you can just tone that down, you'll be far more successful, right? Because I'm just like bull at a gate with everything. So he's always tried to just tone me down. And he was just a fantastic mentor. So because of him, I was very aware of the learnings I was having. I was very young. In that industry, most of the people were well over 40 that were working for me. So most of them over 40, 50. Most of them were men in that day and age. I'm talking the 80s at that stage. And it was a fantastic grounding for my life, I think.
Yeah. Positive male role models, right? And I speak to that sometimes too, right? It's just when you're in that bad spot, if you don't have that father figure in your life, or you're struggling in that area, it's finding those positive people, especially like what you did. I don't know whether financial services you stumbled your way into that or whether you were looking to go into that, but finding someone who's where you want to be and going and connecting with them and seeing if they will help you and mentor you. And just like some of the folks that you met, man, that job comes to an end and it helps kick you on your entrepreneurial journey. Tell us about that.
Well, I got to being senior manager of what was New Zealand's biggest financial services company. I was in charge of all their marketing and sales. Had 4,500 people reporting to me at one point or another. And I used to have to go to the board meeting every week, and I used to have to fly to it. And so I'd fly to this board meeting, and I'd sit in the board meeting with the CEO and the other seven, chiefs of this, CFO, CIO, UFO, all the people were around the table, right? And I just used to look at it and go, these people just want to get paid. They couldn't give a damn about this company, and
Yeah.
they don't come up with an original idea because if they do, somebody may take it on, it may fail, and then they're in trouble, and their bonus may get lost. I've got to get out of this. And the kicker for me, Jeff, was a guy who worked for me as the marketing manager came to me, and he was 55 at the time. I was at 39, I think. And he came to me and he said, we're going through all these changes. I can't lose my job. I've got kids going to university. I have to pay them. Please, you've got to look after me. And he literally was crying. And I thought, I never want to be in that position.
Yeah.
So I have to remove myself from corporate and become the master of my own destiny.
Ooh, man. Master of your own destiny.
That's not
Um,
necessarily a good thing.
no, but like it's I remember having that moment and the way you framed it is different. Like I just decided I wanted to bet on me, take a chance on me, and just go see where my story takes me. And so very very similar. I worked like I was comfortable, man. We had two kids. I got married. I had life was just churning along, man. When I got to about that 8 year mark in of a 10 what ended up being a 10 year career inside of this company, learning everything, running everything, like just dialing in my marketing skills and just job skills coming to me. And I kept saying, like, man, I wonder what else is out there. I wonder what else is out there, right? I just kept questioning, like,
Yep.
man, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? And one day I just went, I talked to my wife and we created an exit plan for us. And then I went to the owners and was like, hey, man, I want to go do me for a while.
That's
And
awesome.
I've been, yeah, say similar thing. I probably I seek success where I feel like you found it. Um, So I'm still on kind of stumbling my way in some of the areas where I like to be and figuring that out, but I'm committed to the process.
Well, I think we all are, Jeff, and that's the thing. I mean, people look at the billionaires, and they have really rough months as well. They have rough 6 months from time to time.
Yeah,
Bill Gates, who's not my favorite billionaire by far, but I remember when the American government was trying to close him down because Microsoft was a monopoly. How would you like
yeah.
that? You've worked all your life, you've become this, mega billionaire, and now the government wants to close you down? Like, seriously? So, how he got through that, I don't even remember now, but that story always sticks in my head that it doesn't matter what level of business you're at, whether you're just starting out and you're doing a startup, whether you've been in business like us for a while. We have
Yeah.
huge successes and we have some real stinky days as well. That's just how it's part of the territory.
Do you feel like your relationships was a powerful driver to help you get moving, or was that kind of secondary for you? Was the opportunity first or the relationship first? Let's put it like that.
Oh, it was the opportunity first. I mean, any relationship that I had at that point in my life just wasn't vibrant anyway. I had great friends and they were all supportive. Actually, it was really funny because when I remember going back and having a beer with my childhood friends. Like I still got my childhood friends, the ones we went through school with, and we got really tight when my mother died, and there's five of them. And I remember going and having a beer with them. We only see each other once every year, a couple of years. And one of them, strangely enough, is now like CEO of a bank. I mean, he's done super well, like really well.
Yeah.
But and this was when I first was thinking about coming out of corporate. And one of them said to me as we were having a drink, they said, "What are you going to do in the next 10 years?" And I thought, oh, here it goes. I'm going to tell them. And I said, well, at that stage, I wanted to come out. I wanted to do speaking. I wanted to do a couple of other things. I thought, how am I going to frame this? And I said to them, I think I want to be New Zealand's Tony Robbins. And I
Yeah.
waited for them to burst out laughing and just give me all the crap that they could. And they just looked at me and went, you'd be pretty good at that. And
Right room, right people.
it was like the biggest rubber stamp I could ever imagine, that these people who I'd gone through my life with didn't take the piss out of me for that. They just said, no, you'd be pretty good at that. And I think it gave me confidence. So they were the
Yep.
relationships, I guess, that supported the transition.
It takes you on to your circle of excellence group. Is that your first landing spot? Is that where you landed first, or what was your first creation?
No, my first creation out of corporate was a combination of a property investment company and a property seminar series
I
that I
got you.
used to run to sell property investments. And I had that for some time, and then we franchised it, and then basically the global financial crisis destroyed it, and I lost $3 million in a week. But apart from that, it was going pretty well. Circle of Excellence started under another name in 2006, so it's 20 years old next year, and it's just grown and taken a life of its own. My wife and I run it. I'm the chairman; she's the CEO. As I said, we've got 5 companies in the group, and clients in more than 50 countries. And we really just do one thing. We do it in a multitude of different ways, but we just do one thing, and that is we help conscious leaders. And I'll describe what that is. It's a person who making a difference is as important as making a profit. We
Yeah.
help them to play a bigger game than they ever believed possible. So there's many ways in which we do that, and we've just got such great clients. I mean, we've never had a bad client in 20 years. I mean, I can't think of one. So it's
What
it
is
sort of kicks on without us.
give us a taste of that? Like when you say, when they want to, how you just said that spoke to me, man. Where they're looking for purpose, right? It's not just about dollars. It's how do you give us an example of, yeah, whatever it looks like from your side of what that looks like, or maybe just a quick little overview of,
Sure.
hey, this is a company that we jumped in with.
Sure. Well, I think it's the simplest things. The one that sprung to mind when you asked the question, Jeff, is a guy called Richard Hardiman. And I met Richard. He was a DJ on a radio station, and he interviewed me, not dissimilar to you are, over 10 years ago. And so after we got off air, like, he was just a really good guy. We connected, and then he came to one of our events about the next year, I think it was, because it was actually in South Africa. I wasn't living in South Africa at that stage, and he's from Cape Town. And he said, Mike, I've got this idea, and I've told a few of my friends, and they think it's the stupidest idea they've ever heard. Can I tell you? I said, sure, tell me. He told me his idea, and I said, Richard, I think that's one of the best ideas I've heard in many, many years. Let's put some structure around it. Now, that was 12 years ago, I think, maybe 11 years ago. That company is currently in 2025 being listed on the New York Stock Exchange.
Really?
It's called Ran Marine, and his stupid idea that he told me all that time ago was that he wants to design a boat that looks like a shark and wanders around the harbors of the world and chomps up waste like plastic bottles and rids the harbors of them. I said, I think it's a freaking awesome idea. And these days with, AI and robotics and everything like that, it's gone to another whole level. He's based out of Rotterdam in the Netherlands. He's been living there for the last 6 years. He's a phenomenal guy. And and the beautiful thing is, when he listed, his wife asked him, I don't understand how wealthy we're going to be. Can you explain it to me? And he said, well, if it goes okay, you can add up all of the wealthiest people we've ever met in our life, and we're probably going to be more wealthy than all of them. And I just think that's fantastic.
Yeah. That's a great example of someone who wants to make money. Which, business said, look, you want to be in business, but get comfortable making money, because that's, if not, go be an employee and get someone else to give you their money, right?
Yep.
So that's an obstacle that I watch entrepreneurs, especially the new ones, when they're coming out, and I struggled with that. It's just that trying to make your first dollars and not feeling like you're greasy or whatever. But it's a mindset shift that you have to just get comfortable with enjoying money, and then when you find the purpose that aligns with and what your client is doing will absolutely change the world. I mean, that is a game changer. Man, such a cool story. Thank you for picking that one, man.
Well,
And
you
you've
placed
got
it in my mind.
countless. Yeah, that's right. That's right. You, amongst all of your clients, is there particular traits that you see or that you're able to pull out among them? Is there particular things that you see, like, man, when I work with people, I end up seeing these three things because there's a commonality, it sounds like, amongst all of them.
You're absolutely right, and there is. The first one is a really interesting one that we picked up. They all have manners. And it's such a weird thing, because so many people these days don't have manners, right? Like they'll cut across people in restaurants when they're talking. They'll shoo somebody away. They'll do that sort of thing. If a beggar comes, they'll just go, get out of here, or something like that. All of our clients, and I'm not talking about the ones who buy books from us or maybe do an online course, but all of our clients that we personally know have really awesome manners. And I find that really interesting. The second one is that they've all got a way in which they want to see the world. They want to see common sense returned. They are against a lot of the stuff that's gone on in the last 10 years in the world generally. So they want to see the return of common sense. They want to see the return of fairness in the world. Okay, so that's a big one. And I think the third one is every single one of them is prepared to leave the world a better place, even if it costs them a few bucks and they don't quite get the cash they want to. And that's a big one. And we don't, how do you tell that in a person? I don't even know how we attracted it, Jeff, to be honest. But it's a sort of thing where, like I've got a client at the moment. He's been with us for 5 years. He's launching a new aspect to his business. It's just gone gangbusters. It's gone so well that he says, look, I think it's going so well that what I'm going to do is all the people that basically bought from me in the first 3 months, I'm actually going to give them a share in the company. It's like, so they can, yeah, and it's like just one share, but they'll all get it. And that's like 20 of them, and it's huge, right? So it's that sort of thing that I notice with people.
Um, and your scheduling with me falls right in there. So maybe it's just a because I'm a common sense kind of guy, right? And I
Right.
get frustrated with those everything you were talking about, and so I think you've aligned that my. I see. Maybe you're my fourth guest this week. My first three have been kind of in the a little bit of intuition, a little bit of spirituality, and a little bit of manifestation. And I think you're the package or the accumulation of all of those conversations here of someone who's dialed in what they're looking for in life and manifestations, and everything's coming to you in kind of that right way of the folks you're attracting the right people in your life. That's a superpower, man.
Well, I think action creates traction, and traction
Yeah,
creates attraction, right? So
yeah,
if you write down the word attraction, everybody, you'll see the word action in it, and you'll see the word traction in it. And the other thing is, like, I've worked with a lot of, I've worked with a lot of spiritual gurus. I mean, we owned a company called Soul Journeys for 12 years. We luckily sold it in 2019, but it was a travel company that took people on extraordinary journeys of the soul around the world. And I think I led 24 of those tours during the time. We've been everywhere from the pyramids to Machu Picchu to running Asia's first spiritual cruise. We've had lots of really great spiritual leaders on there. And the thing that I noticed that I think is the complete package, and my wife is really, she's got this. I mean, I struggle with it. I step into the material world too much. She doesn't. She's just brilliant. So I've never seen her be grumpy or be anything but positive in the whole 12 years I've known her. Um, but the thing that I learned through that is you've got through owning Soul Journeys is you've got to have a foot in both worlds. You know, we're born with
mm,
two legs. If you've got a foot in the material world and a foot in the spiritual world, then you keep stepping like that. You lead a pretty balanced life, and things seem to
yeah.
work out. Your manifestation seems to work out. If you do one or the other too much, it's like you're hopping through life. It's hard to balance. It's really hard to balance. So I lean more to the materialism, even though, you know, my fascination and what I've studied for a lot of my life is ancient cultures and mysticism and esoterics and stuff like that. But I'm still the guy who goes, right, what have we got on this week? You know, I'm that guy. Whereas Lundy, my wife, is sort of like, um, why don't you not get on your laptop in the morning? And she doesn't even have an email address. Why don't you just go out on the balcony with a cup of coffee and watch the ocean with your journal for an hour?
I get it. I know what you're talking. I have friends like that. Like, Jeff, you need to be outdoors more. Like, hang on. I gotta get this done real quick. I know exactly what you're saying there. That's really cool. It's neat that how did you meet your wife?
At an event.
Yeah.
I ran an event brand which we still own, which is called Entrepreneur X Factor. And the concept of it was that we would go and to various cities, and entrepreneurs would come and they'd pitch their business, and it was sort of like a part personal development event, sort of like a part Dragon's Den, and then the audience would vote, and then we had a winner in the city, and that culminated in a winner globally, etc. And when I came to South Africa in 2012, um, she was at that event, and she was the winner of that event. 95% of the audience voted for her, and I obviously fell in love with her on the spot. But 6 months later, through the process of just working together, because we put a book together on all the winners, we just got to know each other, and it was so weird. Life's so weird. I was having a Christmas Day function at my house in Auckland, New Zealand, with some of my friends, about 10 of them. One of my friends said, "So, are you in love with Landi?" And I said, "What are you talking about, dude?" And he's like, "Well, every time she posts on Facebook, you comment within about 4 seconds." And before that, I hadn't actually put two and two together. And I went, "Oh my goodness, I am in love with her." So Boxing Day, I bit the bullet and contacted her and said we'd never had one even slightly romantic discussion, Jeff. It was pure talking about the world, talking about business, talking about spirituality, just like friends. And I told her the story of what happened the next day. And I said, do you want to know my answer? She said, yes. I said, drum roll. And I told her that I've been in love with her every lifetime and I'm in love with her this lifetime. And she just said, I'm in love with you too. And
Oh,
from that, we just put the 12,000 kilometers, 8,000 miles and apart, and we just got together. And I can't remember the last time we spent a day apart. It would be probably 10 years ago when she got bumped off a flight. And
yeah.
that was it. Apart from that, we're with each other 24/7.
You ever think back to that 15-year-old kid?
I don't know that I can associate with him, but that's a great question. You know, I've never been asked that question. Um, I think back to
Drum roll, Mike. Drum
drum
roll.
roll. You've done well, Jeff. You've done well.
No, I'm serious,
I
man.
don't think
Because
I
look,
do.
I had a conversation earlier, man, and I have to really, I have some pretty hefty boundaries up, and some things I'm just not willing to go back and. But here lately, some things have ripped back a couple layers of, and so I let myself kind of go back there about, all right, dude, let's. I learned to kind of be proud of myself, like going back and kind of in my time machine heads, going back and telling that kid like. Hey man, everything you're gonna do is gonna turn out just fine. Just keep doing it, right? Or just, but like because listen, man, when you literally hit by yourself. Um, my mom was at least still in the picture, right? I had an aunt. You have so just point being, it's like, do you let yourself go back to that talk to that kid or talk to that 15-year-old side of you?
I think I have done at times, but definitely not recently. And yesterday was the anniversary of my mother's death. I think it was 47 years or something like that ago, right? And so we light a candle, and we said a prayer for her when we sat down to dinner. But I don't go back to who I was then. I just see it as, it's something that happened. Um, you know. Lundy's 95-year-old grandmother died the week before last, and a couple of years ago she stayed at our house extensively because she loved our view. But one of the times she sat down with us and she said, "I want to give you guys some advice." So what's that? She goes, "As you get older, it doesn't get easier." so, so I think
That's
So
yeah.
look,
Everybody tells you that, right? Yeah, as you get older, you get experience. Yeah, no, it's
yeah,
bull crap.
it's not going to get easier. So I think for me, it's I don't want to wear it as a badge or anything. It's just something that happened to me. I think I was lucky enough that I had good friends because I could have run off the
Yeah,
rails.
yeah,
And
yeah.
in the end, everything worked out well.
I think you're right on that. I think that's where I ended up at in my head was my friend. I was with one of my great friends. We've been together since I was young in middle school, and which so you're talking 13, 14, 15 years old. And he asked me the question. He was like, "What does this mean to you?" And I go, I just think it's just part of the story. I'm like it's. I can't tell the story without all these moments. I can't tell the story without all these events. Um, I'm like everything's turned out exactly the way that I'm happy. I'm at peace. I forgive everything about
Yeah.
myself that's ever, I've learned to be a little more in touch with my spiritual side. All those things, right? But I do just thinking about you and our commonality with that was I was like, I wonder what Mike would say. Like if you've ever just went back and kind of relived a little bit of that 15-year-old uncertain you of packing your stuff up and going to live with your friend.
Yeah, no, I haven't. I mean, I was lucky that it transitioned pretty well for me. I mean,
Good.
he was a drummer, I was a guitar player. We set up a band in his garage, so I cried a lot for the first month or something, but I think that was cleansing. Um,
Yeah,
so I think lots of people have lots of worse things happen to them in
yeah.
their life
I've
than
learned
that,
that,
and
buddy.
and so it's and I think that's what it's about. It's we all get a second chance. It's what you do with it, right?
Yeah,
And
much so.
I was on another podcast. It was actually a client of mine's podcast, and I said to him, when people die, they don't sit there in the last hours of their life and go, "Gee, you know what? I had a Mercedes Benz, a house in the Hamptons. They don't say that.
Yeah.
They look at who they've loved and who's loved them, and they looked at the memories that they created. And so, you don't take your Mercedes Benz to the other side. You do take your memories with you. So I think life's about creating the best memories that you can
I
possibly create.
tell I tell when I speak as well, and if it's one of the ones where I can work this in, I'll talk about that. And I'm like, you never see a family walking in and putting the money on the person, right? Getting ready to leave us, mom, dad, grandpa. Let's get all your money in here on you. And I said, you never really hear that person ask for it, but you'll hear them ask for this. And if you pay attention to this, folks, and if you'll pay attention for this, when you find uncertainty in your life or you find yourself this, that, and the other, a lot of times the first thing you ask for is more time. And
Absolutely.
that's the thing, right? That's the thing that's the hardest. It's hardest to make. We can't make it, but we can create it through wealth. We can create it through better management, all those things. But there's 24 hours and it's going to go and we have to manage that. And if you could say, I wish I had one more breath or I had one more whatever, we're just asking for time.
Absolutely. And I think that's why we can't waste it. That's why you've got to do what's in your heart today.
Tell me real quick, talk to me about your president-elect of the Global Speakers. That's got to be a big deal.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited about it. It's like a pinnacle job, and of being in the speaking business for 20 years now. Uh, it covers 55,000 speakers in more than 35 countries, and I'm part of the board. I've been part of the board now for a couple of years. I become president in July, so in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm going there, or Scottsdale, really, and and so then it just gives me an opportunity to influence thought leaders from around the world and again try and make the world a better place. So that's the
Yeah.
part of it that I'm really looking forward to. And, the people that are in the associations that work underneath the badge of what is the Global Speakers Federation, they're in the boardrooms and conference rooms of some of the biggest companies in the world. So I think if anything, myself and others that are in leadership can do to help them influence positively in all the ways in which we've talked about today, Jeff, I think that would be a nice legacy.
Yeah. I ain't disagreeing with you there, brother. Mike, how do you want folks to get in touch with you?
You can snap me on LinkedIn. So Mike Handcock with a D. There, just look for Mike Handcock Circle of Excellence, or simply go to our website, which is circleofexcellence.biz, and you'll find me there.
You've got every reason to harbor a lot of anger and carry on a lot of kicking the can and all those things. But if you look up, I have folks that come on my podcast and I call them hope dealers, and you fall into a new category that I just created, and you are a curse breaker, and you're someone that so, there's people that are going through where you are that are lost at 15 years old and by themselves. And they exist, you know that as well. And you're living proof that they can break that curse. And that's something I enjoy speaking to about my life. And I'm glad that ours crossed
Me
paths
too.
and I got to learn about your story, man. I can't wait to follow you. I sent you, I sent you a friend request there on your Instagram so we can connect through there and keep this conversation going because you're doing amazing things, man. And can't appreciate you enough for being with me today.
And Jeff, thank you so much. Well, your podcast and what you're doing really does help people. So
Yeah.
good on you. And I'm looking forward to following you and staying in touch. And maybe we can catch up in the flesh one day when I'm in the US.
Absolutely love it. But when you hit here, but I got to make that South Africa trip too. So maybe it'll be twofold, and we
Hook
can
up with
we can
me and,
catch up.
and yeah, we'd love you to over here. You'd love it. It's a great country.
Yeah, I'd absolutely love it. Look forward to all that, Mike, and I'll be catching up with you soon.
Okay. Bye, Jeff. Bye, everyone.